The experience of trying to lose weight often brings with it a harsh inner narrative, one filled with self-blame, frustration, and the false belief that not seeing changes on the scale equals personal failure. This mindset, though common, is not just emotionally damaging, it also misrepresents what's actually happening in the body. Mounting evidence from psychology and metabolic science suggests that weight may not be the most meaningful indicator of success. In fact, people who don't lose much weight or any at all can still improve their metabolic health in measurable, lasting ways. Reframing the journey toward health as one of adaptation rather than achievement is not only more accurate, it's far more sustainable. One of the most persistent traps in weight-centered thinking is the belief that discipline equals results and that lack of visible change means lack of effort or effectiveness. But weight loss is governed by a complex interplay of genetics, hormones, stress, sleep, and individual metabolic history, not just calories in and calories out. The body is hardwired to resist fat loss under certain conditions, especially after repeated cycles of dieting. This resistance isn't a failure of willpower, it's a biologically programmed survival response. When people internalize stalled weight loss as moral failure, they may abandon behaviors that are actually helping them: balanced eating, regular movement, improved sleep, and reduced inflammation. Reframing the outcome language from success or failure to adaptation, learning, or metabolic resilience helps neutralize shame and promotes a healthier relationship with the process. For example, someone who begins exercising and eating better might see improvements in fasting glucose, blood pressure, and triglyceride levels, even if their weight barely changes. They may sleep better, think more clearly, experience fewer food cravings, or notice reduced joint pain. These outcomes are deeply meaningful, but often get ignored or downplayed in a culture obsessed with visible transformation. Psychologically, this binary thinking around weight creates a narrow definition of health progress and reinforces cycles of self-sabotage. When a person is told they're failing because they haven't dropped pounds, even as their internal markers are improving, they're less likely to stay consistent with positive behaviors. Shame is a poor motivator. It narrows attention, reduces problem-solving capacity, and encourages black and white thinking. In contrast, positive reinforcement based on non-weight health markers increases motivation, agency, and long-term adherence. There's also a significant cognitive toll that comes with dieting failure language. Studies show that weight cycling, the repeated loss and regain of weight, is associated not just with metabolic strain, but with increased anxiety, body dissatisfaction, and disordered eating behaviors. When people learn to view health behaviors as investments in function and well-being, not just as tools for reshaping their bodies, they often find a renewed sense of autonomy and sustainability. They're more likely to continue eating well and moving regularly, not because they're punishing themselves, but because they're supporting their own vitality. Metabolically, the body may respond favorably to positive lifestyle changes regardless of what the mirror shows. Reduced liver fat, improved insulin sensitivity, better gut microbiome diversity, and normalized cortisol rhythms are examples of internal transformations that rarely track with short-term weight loss. These improvements lower the risk for diabetes, heart disease, and even some cancers, outcomes far more significant than fitting into a smaller clothing size. To support long-term success, health professionals are increasingly adopting weight-neutral frameworks that prioritize behavior change, metabolic markers, and mental well-being over appearance. This doesn't mean weight is irrelevant, but it recognizes that for many, sustainable change comes from consistency, not crisis. Patients who learn to track their success through metrics like energy, lab results, sleep quality, or mobility often report feeling more empowered and less anxious, even if their weight remains relatively stable. The idea that weight loss is the ultimate proof of health is not only outdated, but actively harmful to many. By shifting the language from failure to feedback, and by focusing on metabolic improvements rather than external appearance, people can escape the mental burden of dieting culture and reclaim a more compassionate, biologically accurate relationship with their health. What matters most is not what the scale says, but how your body functions and how you feel living in it.